I'm Paul Smyth. I'm the Executive Director of Politics in Action. And I really want to thank you all for being here today, but also for the work that you've been doing together. There was a guy called Stephen Coleman who wrote a report a few years ago about young people in politics, and he said, the dominant idea is that young people have disengaged from politics. The reality is that politics has disengaged from young people. He wrote that about a decade ago, and I kind of think, like, in some ways, politics has disengaged from lots of people, not just young people. But the way we work in Politics in Action is to bring you to meet decision makers. And we were doing that work through lockdown. We were doing that work through a period where we didn't have an assembly for 2 years. And it kind of felt a little bit like, we were presenting ideas, but the people we were presenting the ideas to had no power to do anything about them. So it's been much more exciting this year that we now have a functioning assembly again, and we can talk to MLAs who can take your ideas forward and hopefully will. But also going forward, there are now assembly committees, there are ministers, and there's other ways of influencing the people in power. And also as young people, you can influence in lots and lots of other ways. I was chatting to one of the groups who were looking at the pink tax about the way that products for women are more expensive, and there's a kind of gendered bias in a lot of products. And they were saying they were struggling to get politicians to take the idea seriously, but it's a perfect example of an idea that you could run a campaign on social media on that politicians would eventually realize they have to take seriously. The other advice I'm going to give to our political panel here before they speak is stop telling young people that they are the future. I hear it all the time and it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts partly because it's self-evident, you're going to be around longer than me, but also it strips your agency in the here and now. We need to listen to young people precisely because they're young people. And your ideas are important because of who you are right now, not for any person you might become in the future. And we need to get better at listening to young people and involving young people in creating solutions to the many complex problems that we face as a society. So Politics in Action's work is really about making that interaction between you and politicians and other decision makers more effective. So last weekend I was in Edinburgh and Cardiff and with some of you here, and we were making a podcast series and we were interviewing people about votes at 16. And in Scotland they've had votes at 16 for a decade now, in Wales for about 3 years. And it's something we're campaigning on for Northern Ireland. In fact, we are holding an event here in September to highlight that issue, and we'll be bringing people from Scotland and Wales to talk about the issue. And it was really fascinating to see how that issue has actually transformed not just young people's engagement in politics, but so much else. So in Wales, for example, they're looking at automatic voter registration. So you won't actually have to register to vote, which is a big obstacle for a lot of young people, but also a lot of other people, because if you don't know if you're on the register or not, then you're not sure if you should turn up to vote. So the work that you're involved in might feel sometimes like it's a wee school project, but actually it's extremely important. And I always argue that politics is far too important to leave to politicians. That said, I'm absolutely delighted that we have the panel we have with us today. The discussion's going to be a little bit shorter than we had hoped, and we are very keen to also hear from our youth panel later. But I hope you've all had a good day so far, and I'm really looking forward to hearing the discussion going forward. So thanks again very much, and I hope to see you all soon.